Welcome to GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, aka the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author, and certified self-leadership trainer with the John Maxwell team, Dom Brightman. And this is the podcast where authors from around the world help you realize that success is tangible. You'll leave with at least one new tip of inspiration or information or even motivation every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors known as the Going North Podcast, I got to thank my good buddy, Mr. Eminem himself, Mr. Mickey Mickelson of the Creative Edge Publicity Crew, for hooking me up with this super special, awesome human today. Because speaking of super special, awesome human today, this guest in particular, he's a founder, folks. This man right here, he found something. He found the wonderful TalentC. That's right, folks. TalentC, a human resources solution provider focused on effective mentoring. And it doesn't even stop there, folks. He's an international certified mentor practitioner, as well as an international certified mentor facilitator with over 30 years of mentoring and leadership experience in federal, provincial, and private sector environments, and is recognized as a thought leader in the mentoring space. And it just keeps going on and on there, folks, because not only he found something, he's also certified, he's also an award-winning individual, because back in the year of 2016, he won the Leadership Excellence Award, and he was ranked in the top 10 in the top leadership partner category at the awards ceremony in Nashville, Tennessee. So let's give it up for the fabulous DL himself, Mr. Doug Lawrence. How you doing today, Doug?
I'm doing great. Great. Yeah. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Glad you're able to find your way to the magical Going North podcast today with all the stuff that you have to offer. And the good news is the stuff that you're still probably cranking out from day to day.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, published the book in 2014, and I'm working on my second one right now under, the guidance of Mickey, of course, and hope to get that one out because I think it's a very timely topic.
Heck yeah, I can say that again. Indeed. So is it going to continue with the mentorship trail, or is it like G14 classified?
No. We will classify it to that extent, not yet anyhow. No, it will follow the mentoring path. But what I've done is I've done lots of research on mental health, and what I've found is that there's a place for mentoring in the mental health space as part of the support structure. And I'm actually working with individuals, as we speak today, that are experiencing mental health challenges and stuff. And the story gets even more interesting in that I too have suffered from post-traumatic stress, but didn't know it at the time. And it wasn't until such time as I started to do this research to write the second book that I went, oh my God, it was like looking in a mirror, and I went, oh my gosh, that's me. I've dealt with that. I've had to deal with post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, I heard about that in one of your past interviews. I believe it was shortly after your time in the Canadian Royal Mounted Police Force, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
was it? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that it was a number of realizations came out of that. Number one, the organization wasn't prepared to deal with post-traumatic stress or any of the other mental health challenges. And number two, we forgot about the families that were that had to live with an individual that was dealing with that. There was no support for them as well. And so, we have come a ways, but we still have a long ways to go yet. And I'm hoping that with this book getting published, that it will help people realize that that there's stuff out there that we need to deal with. I call mental health and all its tentacles, I call that the silent pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. Because yeah, that big pandemic, the one that got the most publicity, like the COVID thing, like that really escalated the silent one because folks had to be trapped within themselves and deal with themselves. And a lot of folks don't really know how to deal with that, and they just couldn't cope.
Well, you take a look at, and the coping part is that's a really good point because I heard all weekend long about people saying we're sick and tired of this whole COVID stuff, and we can't hug or kiss anybody, and we can't go and visit our family, and we can't visit our friends. We can't even There's no place to go for a cup of coffee unless you want to take one from a coffee place and go sit in a open park by yourself. you know that that's and it's starting to wear pretty thin for folks, and that's where having that mentor that, well, you may not be able to meet face to face, you can still meet virtually, and you can have those conversations about, this is how I feel, this is what it you know I'm my anxiety and depression is climbing at a fast rate just because I'm not able to fulfill some of those human needs of relationships and face to face contact.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because it actually reminded me of I think it was Miranda, another one of Mickey's clients. We ended up discovering like, hey, we have the quote unquote social distance, but we can still have some cyber closeness thanks to Zoom and all these other tools out here. Where it's like, hey, we really can't hug and kiss our loved ones, but at least we can still do the whole digital thing. And heck, even in the comfort of our own home in our PJs, if we have a good Wi-Fi signal, or heck, even just going old school, just calling them up and talking on the phone with them.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point because I think, because of COVID, we've gone to the virtual chats, and a lot of people now don't know how to pick up the phone and actually make a phone call because they'll say, well, how am I going to get a hold of you? Well, just call me on my phone. It's almost like saying, well, what's that? What do you mean, what's that? So it's changed a lot of who we are. It's changed a lot of how we communicate as well.
Yeah, it really has. Heck, even buddy of mine in some of his presentations, he when he talks about communication, he sometimes jokingly says, all right, everyone. So pull out your phones. There's a specific app right here. Yeah, it's called the phone.
Yeah,
And you press it and you call somebody.
yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
how bad it's got.
Well, I had somebody had said that if one of the ways you can get in touch with me is the telephone, and I'm going, and do you know about this thing called video chat? And, oh yeah, but it's easier for me to just pick up the phone and dial. And I'm thinking, but there's a missing element. It's that, being able to see body language, even though it's virtual, but it's still being able to see the body language, and that body language will send you a number of different messages. One of the things that I find that even if I'm doing a virtual, but it was probably more predominant when I was doing face-to-face mentoring and that, but I would do what I called a quick scan of that individual as they were coming towards me. And from that scan, I would be able to determine if there were some things we needed to talk about. So, did they appear to be somewhat depressed or suffering from anxiety, or did they appear to have low self-esteem, self-confidence? All of that you can get from the body language, and from that scan, and then from there you can map out where you're going to go.
Oh yeah, yes indeed, yes indeed. That's probably some remnants of some of the training you had at your time in the police force, if I'm not mistaken, right?
A lot of it, yeah, yeah, a lot of it, yeah. And that also helped, I think. When I think back to when I first started TalentC back in 2009, and I was already mentoring people, but I didn't know what it was at that time point. I just thought, you know, people come to me and I ask a bunch of questions and they go away happy. Okay, that works. But it was actually, it was mentoring. And all we've done now is, back from then till now, is we've fine tuned that mentoring process and concepts to get it to where it is today.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about. Days of fine tuning the mentorship indeed. So my goodness, like everybody really needs a mentor in life in whatever area it is. And speaking of fine tuning, what do you think may be the major things of fine tuned mentorship?
You mean as far as what does it take to have that fine-tuned mentorship?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So from my perspective, obviously having a mentor that has experience mentoring doesn't has let me rephrase that. They don't have to have industry specific experience. It's a nice to have, but not a need to have. So I've worked with probably 30 to 35 different industries and probably only have experience in maybe one or two of those. And it's never been an issue as far as me being able to provide mentoring to somebody in a company that I have no experience in. So, like, even I've done some work here with people in the agriculture industry, in the manufacturing, in the healthcare, the list kind of goes on. And in all of those cases, I don't have that particular experience. One of the other things that I have found, and my business partner who's in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, we've developed a certification for mentors. And similar to what you get if you go through the coaching program, where you become a certified coach and that go through the program that the international mentoring community has created, and you actually become a certified competent mentor. So that that has really helped move forward with a lot of things. In fact, just how important mentor certification is that I was working with an organization here a couple of weeks ago now, and in order to sort of qualify myself as being able to provide mentoring services, I had to provide them with my certifications. And once they saw that, then everything was cool, and we could move forward with conversations and that around that. But the top two things that stick out for me always when it comes to mentoring are, can that individual build a trusted relationship? So yes, I can build a relationship, but can I develop the level of trust? And then the second is, and you've already touched on this, which is the ability to communicate effectively. So with communication, there's a number of things that we need to be cognizant of. So active listening, so actually listening and hearing what the individual is actually saying, the aspect of building trust. And building trust can sometimes mean having to share something very personal about yourself to start that trust building process and getting it moving ahead. Then there's the whole aspect of, especially when you get into the mental health mentoring space, where you have to listen for trigger words in the conversations. You have to watch for deflections where they may not be ready to talk about something that's bothering them. And so then you got to figure out, am I going to park it or rephrase it, and do a number of different things like that. So there's all of those. There's my favorite one is the pausing technique, where I before I go to say what I'm thinking, I need to pause and think, how would I like it if somebody were to say that to me? And if I seem to have an issue with it, then maybe I shouldn't say that to that other person. And I need to reframe or rephrase that particular statement. So those are all sort of pieces or elements to what I would call, effective mentoring.
Ah, there we go. Indeed. You're so right about that, especially with the active listening and the pausing too. Because sometimes, if we're not careful, we'll let the mouth speak, and then it's like, oh crap, wait a second. I can't take it back either. Like, I can apologize, but they ain't gonna forget about it though.
No, no, that's kind of like the whole story of conditional and unconditional love. It's like conditional and unconditional communication is, once it's said, and then you got to deal with the aftermath.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just hope the aftermath doesn't feel like it was after World War V or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That we don't need.
Exactly, especially nowadays where it feels like you have to really walk on eggshells when communicating with others, because even simple dialogue or even a little bit of debate can sometimes be seen as negative, when at the end of the day it could actually be positive, and it'll help you to reinforce your ideas and learn a different point of view.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And so this whole journey that I've been on, we tried to capture a lot of that in The Gift of Mentoring, my first book that was published in 2014. And, you know, the feedback that I've had has been just absolutely fabulous from people that have taken the book and gone through it. I've had a couple people that have said that, who know me well, have said that when they read the book, it was an easy read, number one, but more importantly for them, it was the idea that it was like we were sitting on a park bench together, and that they could hear my voice as though I was as though I was reading to them, and they could hear my voice all the way through the book. So I thought, what a great way to get the message across to me. Number one, that that was the right way to put the book together, was to turn it into a shared experience where it's almost like saying, we're going to go on a journey together. Here, the book is the guide map or the map, and just read along with me, and we'll see where we end up going. And the book has had positive feedback lots of times. I've actually had a colleague of mine that actually took pieces out of the gift of mentoring and put them into a book he was writing on mentoring. And so, little things like that that just tell you that you were on the right path, and that, you know, continue to go forward on that same journey.
Ah, there you go. There you go. Indeed. It's definitely a high compliment to the author. It's like, oh man, it's like they can actually hear my voice in it, and someone wants to put in a book of their own. It's like, hey, this is freaking awesome. This is good.
Yeah.
As long as they give credit to it, it's even better, as opposed to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, my goodness. So, got the wonderful first book that was released a few years ago, still making some wonderful noise out there in the world, some good, positive, smooth jazz noise, I should say, as opposed to negative noise. So, I don't want people to get the wrong idea, and taking it down the road to the mental health track that a lot of folks need. So, my goodness. So, with all of this wonderful knowledge, there's actually this powerful story. I forgot what it was when I think it had something to do with like a $10,000 deal or something where it changed your life for the better, where you had to make sure you ask a certain vendor or business partner a certain 5 questions before you did business with them.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a tough lesson to have to learn, was to end up losing $10,000 on what I thought was a good relationship. So there was some takeaways for me from that. Number one was that no matter who you're going to partner with, make sure you've done your due diligence, and that, that there's a good match that's there. And take the step back. Practice what you preach, and do the pausing technique even when it comes to business deals and arrangements. Is, okay, what am I missing here? What's not? What are the things that, this is almost like it's too good to be true, so there's got to be something not quite right with it. And so, the some of the questions that I ask now, and I actually started to ask these when I was in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and I was dealing with vendors that were coming to provide services and stuff, was, can you describe, if you want to do business with us, if can you describe what it is that we do? Can you describe what our strategic plan is for the next 5 years? Can you outline how you feel that you are going to be able to be a part of that strategic plan in that direction? And, um, give me a good reason why I should partner with you or let you provide services to our organization. And when I asked a lot of those questions, a lot of vendors walked away, because I remember, I could still see it. We were sitting in the cafeteria area at the headquarters building of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police here in Saskatchewan, and I can still see it was a new vendor, somebody new that thought they were going to pitch their wares to us, and we sat down over a cup of coffee, and I said, well, let's have our coffee, and then we can, kind of have a chat. And so we finished coffee and started to have our chat. And I said, here, I had all this stuff written out, and I slid it to him, and I said, take a read of this and let me know if you've got some issues with some of this stuff, and then we can have a conversation. And he went, it was a he that was the vendor that said, I don't think I can do any of this stuff. And I said, then, it's been great having coffee with you. Let me walk you out. And that was the end of it. And we stuck to that. I stuck to that story all during my time in the RCM, in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. That was how I dealt with vendors right up front. Was, I will go to the effort of learning what your business is all about and how you could provide support. And in return, I expect that you would do the same for me as well.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Know some powerful questions too. And a lot of folks need to know that a lot more now than ever, because especially in the social media space, everybody's pitching you these different things. They send you these friend requests, try to connect with you on LinkedIn. It's like, hey, I like your profile, like what you're doing, want to help you out. And it's like, okay, I got this $997 program to sell you. And it's like, okay, like, how's it going to help me out here? It's like, hey, I want to help you get more clients. Well, hey, what are my actual pain points here? Like, what do I actually do? Did you actually look at the LinkedIn profile? A lot of people, they don't, they just see a random face that looks like they're somewhat active. They send a request, and if you accept, it's like, okay, wow, all righty. Well, I guess you have to try again with someone else.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to report that my current business partner in Calgary, Alberta, Dr. Stephen Hobbs, is a gem. He's a rock star, and I never have never had any issues whatsoever with our relationship whatsoever. And he's kind of like what Mickey's been doing for a whole bunch of us, right? Is he would, I call it, they'd give you the shirt off their back if the opportunity presented itself, and that means a lot.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Always need people like that in the world, and definitely got to take care of them too, because a lot of folks like that nowadays, like, they're still out there, but there's some that try to, or at least the ones that they put up on TV and the media and propagandize out there, like they make it like all bad. But there's some great people out there. Definitely got to take care of them and honor them while they're here.
Well, yeah, and especially in light of everything that's going on with, the pandemic around COVID, and now we've got the silent pandemic that we need to be cognizant of, that, we seem to, I call it the ostrich syndrome. We've got our heads buried in the sand, and if I can't see it or hear it, it can't be happening. Well, I'm here to tell you it is.
Yeah, you can say that again. It's actually been a while since I was actually touched on the show about the suicide rates because I think one guest in particular, he mentioned how to deal with that, he actually tried to make sure he had connections with people all over the world because since we all are on a global time clock now, thanks to the power of technology, you may not be able to really always talk to that special someone at like 3 a.m. in the morning. If you can
Yeah.
call somebody out like Sean or somewhere, it might be a more feasible option. So that way you'll have someone else to help you through that situation because folks are going to be needing help like continuously until we really find a way to better the situation.
Yeah. Well, and what scares me is, what is it? That a person uh, takes their own life from suicide every 40 seconds.
Hmm.
So it's just, it's mind-boggling. And yet, we're doing some things, but there's still more that we need to be doing. Like a lot of these people, though, I'm working with somebody right now that's bipolar and is a suicide survivor, if there is such a thing. And but we have to always be cognizant of the fact that, if things get really, really bad, it's seen sometimes as that's how I'm going to take care of the problem, is suicide. And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way at all. I went through uh, a suicide intervention training course to have that as part of my mentoring toolkit, so that as I'm working with obviously people in the mental health space, and then should this, how to identify where, the situation has become serious, that you may need to call in professionals. But you're also in a place where, with the training that you've had, that you can provide some help to that individual to maybe buy some more time to get them in front of a professional. And that's the other part of the issue, is that the demand for that type of service is so great that we can't always get these people to that professional in a timely manner, because I've had individuals tell me it's taken me 4 months to get an appointment with a psychologist. And,
Mm,
that's not good. That's not good enough at all. So, that's why the whole idea of the mental health mentor is how I call it. That's why that's so important to start to get that into that support system that they've got, and get people to recognize that, you know, the gift of mentoring can continue on, and it can continue on in the mental health space just as it's doing now outside of that space.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And it's definitely something that's definitely needed. So, any advice for folks out there who may be going through that? Like, heck, even maybe, better yet, maybe even family members or loved ones who may have had to help prevent someone from committing suicide. Like, any advice for them from your experience?
Well, the big thing is it's there's such a stigmatism around that, people who would even entertain those ideas or thoughts, there's got to be something really really wrong with them, and that's not the case, because what that does by having that stigmatism then is people stay, as I call it, hidden in the closet, and they won't come out and ask for help. And so the big thing here is that we need to definitely be asking, if you've got issues or problems, you need to be, um, asking for help. And it was, you don't realize. So my wife passed away on the 6th of February, and
Mhm.
I she kept all our love letters over the entire time that our courtship was going on. And it was interesting when I went back through and was reading those letters, and it was kind of, we joked about, I had gone through and categorized, here's the ones, of course, love letters can take a number of different paths, but so I had them categorized as not for public consumption, and some that were for public consumption. So as I was going through and reading these letters, I saw that even as a young Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer, I had thoughts of taking my own life at various times, especially when we were, I forget how many thousands of miles apart, and our only communication was either by radio telephone whenever we could get out on a radio telephone, or it was by writing these letters. And it was that stark realization that, oh my gosh, even I was entertaining those thoughts back then. And I had no one that I could turn to. There was no support structure. I was in you know, my place of work was in a isolated rural community where, you're kind of the person in authority, in a position of authority, no medical services right there. So your closest medical was probably 60 or 70 miles down the road. So, you start to have a deeper appreciation for what others are going through when you've all of a sudden realized that you're experiencing that as well. It's kind of like the realization that when I did all the research on mental health, that, geez, Doug, you actually had post-traumatic stress as well.
Yeah, sorry to hear about your wife. That sorry for your loss. That my
Yeah,
condolences go out to you for that,
yeah,
man.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
been, it is definitely tragic that somebody had to, be taken from us so young. But on the same side, it's also given us the opportunity to do some soul searching inside, and, a number of different things like that. And, start to say that, there are things that we can do to help others in a number of different ways. And obviously, the one that seems to stand out for me right now is the whole silent pandemic, the mental health space, and how mentoring can play a huge part in helping people on that healing journey.
Yes, sir, indeed. Yes, sir, indeed. Definitely helping folks on that healing journey, indeed, because we're all going to need it. So, since this is far from your first rodeo, is there a question that you wish you be asked more often about mentorship?
I, the big thing that it's almost like it's a pandemic of its own, but in the wrong direction, where I'm not totally sure that people understand the full power of mentoring and what it can do, and how important or significant going through the mentor certification process as well, which is to go through it. It's been put together and designed utilizing international standards organization criteria, so ISO criteria, as far as it relates to the verification of an individual's credentials, as far as being able to demonstrate that how you would apply mentoring process and concepts in a real life situation, um, as well as part of the process with the ISO standards is the actual certification of people in the mentoring space. So I there's people just need to be comfortable reaching out and sort of saying, I'm not quite totally sure what can mentoring do for me, or, tell me more about this certification, how important that is and all that. Um, People just need to do that. And, there's always, um, they always will have questions. And the only way to be able to get those solved is if you ask those questions. And, I know I certainly would be more than delighted in taking time to answer people's questions.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but this time in the current year of 2021, with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Stay true to your dream and stay focused on that dream. That would
Uh,
be that. And, that goes way back to when I first had the vision of creating TalentC and the whole independent body for mentoring certification. So I've stuck true to that dream right from the day right from its first inception. I've stuck true to that dream all the way through. And there's been bumps along the way. Obviously the $10,000 bump was more than just a bump, but we've gone through that. But at the end of the day, I can look in the mirror and I can say to myself that, the dream that you had, you've stuck to it, and are you where you want to be? I don't know that we ever are completely there, but then that's what gives us opportunities, and that's what lies ahead.
there we go. There we go, indeed. That's right. Stick to your dreams, indeed. That's right. Stick to it like honey and super glue. Heck, even gorilla glue, too. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, for those who want to keep in touch with you and keep up with all the stuff that you're doing and be on the lookout for book number two that folks are going to be needing to read and devour, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you, Doug?
So the best way, they can obviously find me on LinkedIn. So go into search for Doug Lawrence, and I think there's only a couple of us with that same name, so it should be easy to figure that part out. You can I have a couple websites that you can take a look at and come through the website if you wish. The Talent C one is www.talentc.ca. So the word talent, letter C on the end.ca. Or the second one is that'll give you all kinds of information on the certification of mentors, which is www international mentoring community, and that's all one word.com. And then finally, if you're I do answer emails quite regularly. So if you want to send an email to me at doug.lawrence, and that's LAWRENCE at TalentC, so talent with the letter C on the end.ca. I'd be more than happy to answer questions or help you, you know, take a look at your mentorship program if you're thinking of, implementing mentorship in your organization, or even if you're thinking of what can mentoring do for, the mental health program or lack of thereof in our organization. Please feel free to reach out, and I'd be more than happy to work with you.
Well, there you have it, folks. Reach out to the debonair Doug himself on all of his websites, on the LinkedIn as well. Keep on Look out for that second book is going to be a smashing success. I'm already going to speak it into existence for you because folks are going to be needing it in more ways than one. Definitely going to be needing it in more ways than one. And buy a bunch of copies of book number one while you're waiting for book number two. So, any parting words before we close up shop, Doug?
No, just thank you once again so much for this opportunity. It's been great and I've enjoyed our conversation.
This is your host, Don Brightman. Hope you enjoyed what you just heard. And if you really did, do me a solid and leave a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, wherever you're listening to. And subscribe to hear more because more is coming your way to advance you further than before.